Thank you. Good evening. Today is Monday, February 10th. Welcome to the Milton Warrant Committee. Karen, could you please call the roll?
Sure. We have Tom Caldwell, Steve Rhines is on Zoom, Lori Connolly, Jay Fundling, Julie Joyce is on Zoom, Peter Mon, Brian McGuire, Aman Nagasi, and on Zoom we have Ron Sia and Judy Steele. We have a quorum, and Macy Lee is joining us.
Nice. Hi, Macy. Come on in. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for being here in present and on Zoom. I assume we're going to get a lot of the people from the Bean Pot turning off the hockey game and watching us. So, yeah, right. We got a couple of members there tonight, but we have some things we're going to talk about. I did plan on having town council. Town council had a busy evening and could not make it. Mr. Mello is going to be coming on Wednesday, and I just want to announce that just to clear up some of our issues around the zoning bylaws, the planning board articles that we saw. There were some very specific questions, and I'm sure you'll have more. But town council come in on Wednesday. Is going to answer that, and also any other questions that we have about what we're going to talk about tonight, which are our citizens petitions and our zoning bylaw. Our town administrator is here on Zoom. Very happy to have Mr. Milano with us this evening. He can really speak to the two citizens petitions. The lighting bylaw, not so much, but Jay has put together some materials for us concerning the lighting bylaw, and hopefully we can get a member of the select board in here to discuss that with us potentially by next week. So that's really kind of what we have in store. I'm not expecting a vote or anything tonight, more of information. Town administrator will be sharing what he knows about these citizens petitions, and Jay's going to do some presentations for the lighting bylaw. So all that being said, why don't we get started? Karen, could you promote Nick?
Yep, Nick is a panelist. Here he is.
Hi, Mr. Milano. How are you?
Good afternoon. How are you?
You're muted.
Thanks, Karen.
How's that? Any better?
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Milano. And I would like to thank you again for taking time this evening out of your schedule to be with us and explain a few things. So you probably heard, just looking maybe the best you can in terms of the information you received from the select board and your involvement in the citizens petitions, at least as they came forward. Mr. Milano, any information that you could share with us, I guess, that are pertinent to those two articles that we're going to be commenting on at this upcoming town meeting. And obviously, I guess in the two we have the article concerning the law appropriation, and then we have the planning board, select board article. So I guess if you could we maybe start to maybe have just a discussion about the law line item issue?
Sure. So just so everybody understands how these citizens petitions work, we don't have any involvement in crafting them or writing them or anything. These came in with the signatures right prior to when the select board was finalizing the warrant. The petitions were delivered to our office the way they're supposed to be, and then we bring them down to the town clerk's office for review and certification of the signatures. So Mass General Laws requires that the select board place in the warrant for a special town meeting any item, the subject of which is requested be inserted by, for special town meetings, it's 100 signatures. For an annual town meeting, it's actually just 10 signatures for a citizen's petition article. As this was a special town meeting, petitioners had submitted well over 100 signatures. So the town clerk's office certified, 100 signatures plus a few extra pages just to make sure there are sufficient signatures. Once that happens, they're placed on the warrant for the next meeting. There are two, obviously, the law budget one, which is a reduction in the appropriation for the law budget, and moving appropriation to the school department, and the other is is more of almost a resolution
Oh.
calling for an action of the planning board. Just in terms of what this, and I can answer more specific questions if there are any, but in terms of the one on the legal budget, this is the town's legal budget, which we use. The line item that is being requested be reduced is the professional and special services line, which is any service covered outside of the retainer that we have with Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane. So we pay a flat fee on an annual basis for Peter Mellon's time, and work on things that are kind of just general council items, things that require research and, you know, lengthy memos or court filings. Those are the things that kind of trickle up into special services. The other things that are covered by special services is our labor council services, which is also provided by Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane. So that is personnel matters that might arise where we use counsel, or more commonly, collective bargaining. So if, when we're doing collective bargaining, parties request counsel participate in that, those hourly rates would be charged to this line. And then lastly, we still have some outstanding 40B matters that are being handled by a firm called Hemingway and Barnes. They were brought on by the select board, I'd say 7 or 8 years ago, when all the 40Bs were first coming in through the Board of Appeals process to represent the town. And for the most part, those cases have due. I'm happy to answer more specific questions if there are any, and provide any additional information that might be helpful. And the planning board one, the other citizen petition, like I said, is more of a resolution more than anything. So happy to take questions, Mr. Chair, if there are any.
Yeah. Nick, are there, I guess just generally for the committee, are there any prohibitions statutorily or through any regs promulgated by the Department of Revenue that address these types of matters? And I guess just to preference it, but to ask that, is this, and I know that every citizen can request a reduction in a line item or an increase, but are there any outside state law or anything that has to do with what like minimum requirements that a municipality has to have in terms of a legal budget? Does that make sense?
Yes, there isn't anything in terms of the minimum requirements that a town must have for a legal budget. I would just note one thing about this article itself is that state law does not allow us to spend accounts into a deficit. And if they go into a deficit, we're supposed to clear that by June 30th. So that's when we come to the warrant committee with reserve fund transfers and appropriations transfers to move money around within line items. So as I was saying, state law doesn't allow a town to spend past zero and go into deficit. This citizen's petition, as currently written with the reduction of $250,000, would then put this account into deficit. We spent about $70,000 out of this account at my last check-in. So just to kind of step back, the appropriation was about $283,000. The recommended citizen petition reduction is $250,000, which would bring this account to an appropriation of $33,000 approximately. And we've already spent, I think, closer to $75,000. So what that would mean is a little kind of an open question, whether the town meeting can legally put an account in deficit. We did reach out to the Department of Revenue about that specific question, and they didn't really respond other than to note that these kinds of questions are help answered by local council. So it's something we put on town council's plate to be thinking about ahead of the town meeting.
Does anybody else have any questions? I have, I think, one other. Peter.
Have we seen petitions like this before to go in and take a look at the budget and decide that there's too much in line item A and there should be less in line item D? Is this something that happens regularly in the town?
I didn't quite hear that. I don't know if there's a mic that's not on or if it's not coming through. Sorry.
The question I was asking is, do you get to see this is this a usual petition? Do you see people go signing on to change budget item too much in line item 6 and too little on line item 8.
I'm sorry, so is it usual that this comes up? Is that what
Yeah,
I'm hearing?
how often does this come up?
Oh, I have not seen this before. Like, occasionally there'll be mid-year budget changes that are recommended. Not since I've been in Milton anyway, and if I'm thinking back to my time in prior communities, not very often. You know, typically, if there was to be an adjustment, it would, you know, emanate from us. So, to my knowledge, I don't think this has come up recently in any kind of like a mid-year budget cut and budget transfer that I'm familiar with.
Judy.
Thank you. For Mr. Milano, I believe I heard you say there is still an outstanding case on the 40Bs. And if this should pass at town meeting that we rescind this funding, how will any pending cases be funded? Or resolved even? Would we have to no longer have counsel on that issue?
That is a good question. I would have, if this were approved as written, yes, I mean, this account would be in deficit. We've already incurred bills that we would then have to pay, and there would be potential for future legal costs that we would either need to forego or seek a reserve fund transfer, some kind of an appropriations transfer to pull money from another departmental account and move it into this account. The reserve fund has $250,000 in it. It has not been used, or I'm sorry, $265,000 this year. It hasn't been used yet this year. So that would be one resource, but that would require the warrant committee's approval. Appropriations transfer, where if we took, say, from the select board budget and moved it into the legal budget, that is something we can do, but you can only do that in the last 2 months of the fiscal year. So we wouldn't be able to actually do that until May 1st at the earliest. And that would require both this committee and the select board to approve.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Milano, just to follow up on that, if this were to pass as written, and if there were significant legal costs to be incurred for the variety of matters that are going on, would that be your recommendation that we pull this from the reserve fund? Or would there be any other funding sources? Because, you know, they want the petitioners want this $250 to go to the schools. So outside of the reserve fund, is there anywhere else you think we could draw from off the top of your head?
At this time in the year, I think it's not necessarily. I don't have any specific departments in mind that I know as a matter of fact will be under budget by the year end. You know, we obviously anticipate departments to come in under budget by year end. It's still a little early to say with certainty. So the only true viable option for us at this point would be the reserve fund. The other issue with pulling from other departments is we can't do that until May 1st at the earliest. Yeah. So if we had bills that needed to be paid in February, March, and April, then that would require us to seek a transfer out of the reserve fund and into this account, you know, as soon as possible, pretty much. And there would be outstanding matters, whether in court or otherwise, that the town would need to continue funding those efforts.
Thank you. As the town administrator, what value do you see in the reserve funds as we approach the end of the fiscal year? And when I ask that question, is that something you're looking to tap into?
Not in February.
Yeah. Okay.
No, you know, we certainly want to leave that until the end.
Sure.
You know, whether it's public safety or DPW, there are a lot of demands on people's time that can incur overtime. So those budgets we always keep an eye on. And as everybody's seeing with the storm we just had, we've had 2 busy snowstorms on Saturdays into Sundays, which are even more expensive than normal with the time that we incur with our staff to work. So our snow and ice budget is budgeted every year at $160,000. The actual spend in a normal snowy season is about $500,000. So we go into the year knowing that we have room to make up there. So that reserve fund, I would certainly like to leave untouched until year end.
Thank you. Anybody have any other questions concerning the citizens petition, concerning the line item for law appropriation? Jay.
Yes, Mr. Milano, I have a question as to how citizens petitions work. So they submitted it, they had the required number of signatures, and I heard some of the discussion at the select board about, well, this isn't printed like usual, but we'll just print it as is. So their petition is printed in the warrant. But then at town meeting, the motion before the body is the warrant committee's recommendation. So my question to you is, what restrictions, if any, do we have in what we can recommend? Can we recommend something different than what their petition is, as long as it's within the scope?
My interpretation of this, and this is a good follow-up for Peter on Wednesday, it would be that the matters that have been raised by this article are contemplating a transfer between these two accounts. So I think it's restricted to these two accounts. I think the amount could probably be open to discussion or an amendment, and that's up to the town council and to the town moderator. So I'll defer to them. But my interpretation is, the guardrails, for lack of a better description, are these are the accounts that are being contemplated, and the amounts themselves, in theory, could be somewhat higher, somewhat lower. We do have a bylaw that restricts the amount of appropriations that can be amended on town meeting floor if the budget hasn't been previously studied by the committee or some other committee. And I can point you to that bylaw in a moment.
So you said it's restricted to these two budget items. So if we wanted to, say, take the schools out of it, we want to transfer the money into the reserve fund instead, you're as you said, talk to town council, but your gut is that might not be okay? Or?
Yeah, I would defer to the moderator for scope and town council and town moderator for scope questions on that kind of that specific of a question.
Okay, but if we wanted to change the amount to $1, would that be, to your understanding, would that be an acceptable recommendation from the warrant committee?
I think in terms of going lower than an appropriation that's contemplated in the warrant, I don't think, again, I would defer to them, but I don't see that as being necessarily out of scope, but that would be up to them for a final ruling on it.
Steve Rhines, and then Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Let me try to lower my hand here. Thanks. Mr. Milano, I'll get a question for you. I'm just trying to track this. So in the citizen petition, it's requested to move $33,000 from the select board law professional services, right? And then so it would create deficit in their funds, right? So they would be out of money essentially. Is that correct?
Correct to the purpose, but the amount is to reduce it by $250,000 to make it about $33,000.
Okay. So, and all the projected monies are said to go to the schools. Is that correct? Is that where the target landing spot is for them?
According to the petition, yes.
Okay. Any idea what they would be used for at the schools?
Nope, I do not know.
Okay. Because there's, as you know, as we'll all see tomorrow at the high school, there's a pretty big gap there, right? And so setting more money into an area with that, specific landing spot seems like risk. But what the question I'd have too is, what kind of exposure does the town have if we go into a deficit for law and professional services, right? There's a lot of construction going on in the town. There's storms, right? We have civil servants who, could get injured on the job, right? What's the risk to the town, I'm guessing? I'm asking. I mean, do we have funding if we need to? And I mean, you're talking about reserve funds, shifting monies. Is that what we would have to do?
That would be the only viable option at this point. If this budget goes below what we've spent year to date, we would need to seek funding from another resource, which would then have a cascading effect on new needs, later on in the fiscal year. And ultimately, that's not a guarantee. There's no guarantee this committee would necessarily approve a reserve fund transfer. So,
Yeah.
certainly the town could be left in a place where it doesn't have money to support its legal services, whether things that we're already aware of or something that comes up in 30 days that we had no expectation of.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're potentially putting ourselves in a tight spot, right? It could be, right? Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, and then Peter.
You wanna go first? Yeah, I apologize if I missed some of the numbers, but we budgeted 283,000, correct? Yes. And,
We,
do you know how much we actually have spent of the 283?
75.
Like,
yeah, it was like 78,000 last time I checked, and then we added a couple of things. So it's approximately 80,000 for a round number off the back of the envelope.
80,000 spent. And any estimate as to what they plan to spend going forward? Like, where they're at on that? You know?
Sorry, I'm just trying to pull up a summary here. So it really bounces around year to year. A couple of years ago, we spent about 300,000 in 23. Fiscal 23 was 174. Fiscal 24 was the year we had encumbered the monies for MBTA Communities case, so we had fully spent this budget and then some. We try not to spend all the 283 appropriation. I'll say that much. And our target is always to try to keep this as low as possible. So I would say I would expect anywhere between maybe 200 and 250 to be spent out of this, depending on what could come up between now and year end.
You mean including the
283.
250 more than the 80, you think?
No, total. So
Total.
all in, like somewhere between 200 and 250 of the 283 that's been
Right.
appropriated.
I mean, this is really targeted to the MBTA Community Act law, right? Fighting that in court?
That's my understanding based on some of the
Right.
commentary around that.
Do you know what the estimate is for that legal fee?
At this time, no. The town hasn't made a decision on its next steps on that.
Okay. Do you, do you know why, I mean, I know this was just 250 right to the schools, but you don't know why they didn't designate like the police department or the fire department or DPW for the money?
No, I don't have any insight on that. I would have, kind of go anywhere to.
Yeah.
I'd start working on my snow and ice deficit. Would be good, but no, I mean it just taken from one to robbing one for the other.
So actually, based on what for the end of the year, we're right off the bat being deficit, you already said that, and would be even more in deficit. We'd have to stop spending legal fees completely. The town. Doesn't seem prudent, but.
How do you do that if you get sued?
That's right.
Yeah, just one caveat on that. In terms of lawsuits are, depending on what they are, some may be covered by our insurer, so not everything necessarily flows to this account. For the most part, they do, but there are some things that we have coverage for around professional liability and other items that the insurance company would fund legal costs.
Peter, then Macy.
Thank you. It would appear, and Brian, I think you brought this up, that the two petitions would in fact be related. If we didn't have any money, there would be no fight against any of the zoning as had been approved, but also didn't follow the rules generally put forth by the SJC.
Right.
So I can understand taking the gun out of the hands of the lawyers to fight this might be related, petition 1 being related to petition 2. And putting it to the schools seems like a good thing, so. I'd
Yeah.
Macy?
Certainly.
My question is, the approximate 80,000 that has already been spent out of the professional special needs services, does that sum include the representation in the SJC of the town?
Since we had a fixed fee engagement for the MBTA Communities case with Goodwin Proctor, that money was encumbered at the end of fiscal '24, and it was a contract. So all of the costs borne on MBTA Communities Defense were paid with fiscal '24's money. Fiscal '25 started afresh on July 1st. So these costs to date are those incurred since July 1 on mostly on non-MBTA communities things. Town council will occasionally bill on MBTA communities depending on the matter, but that's at a much lower rate in very few hours. So these are more whether it's labor council services or the defense of the town in certain cases that are flowing through the court system outside of MBTA communities.
Are there any pending litigation at this time that requires additional representation that would require more than $80,000 that's already been spent?
Hard to say. We're engaged in litigation around 648, 652 Canton Ave, which is the 116 unit 40B that's still winding its way through the courts. That project has also, the Conservation Commission declined to issue an order of conditions for that project. That was appealed within the Mass DEP. The developer was granted a superseding order of conditions. The Conservation Commission then appealed that within Mass DEP for failing, for any number of reasons. So that's an example where that litigation is ongoing. The planning board and the town have been sued in relation to the approval of the memory care project across from the hospital. So a butter appeal have appealed that through the court. So council is actively engaged in defense of that. Unquity and Winter Valley filed through the appellate tax board for the charitable exemption, which has been rejected by the appellate tax board and by the courts in past years, but they continue to file again. So we can continue to incur litigation expenses associated with that, where they're trying to avoid paying any taxes to the town. So these are the kind of the matters that are ongoing now. Depending on which direction they go in, we could conceivably continue to spend several $1,000s a month on them between now and the end of the year. And the other item I'll just flag is, we've talked about this in terms of the budget, but on July 1, our collective bargaining agreements do end, or on June 30th rather. So we expect collective bargaining to commence in more earnest in the spring. And some of the unions like to have counsel, so the town brings counsel. So those are expenses that we anticipate between now and June 30th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Ahmad?
I had a question. So I was looking through the booklet of the decision to support renovating the 3rd and 4th floors of the Cunningham School. I want to know, are we, what's going on also with the Tucker School? Because I know I've heard in past meetings, specifically with the select board, of, the Tucker School kind of having a scarcity with around using the rooms. I wanted to check with that because unless I'm missing something, I haven't seen anything about the Tucker School.
Oh, Ahmad, we're addressing the legal
Okay.
line item.
Okay.
The school matter isn't on the agenda.
Okay. I just figured since I got it.
Thank you, though.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Yeah, please, yeah.
Did you have were any of the petitioners contacted and able to come in and speak to it?
I haven't received contact from any of the signatories for the petitioners at this time. I did appeal at the last meeting and have been trying to figure out who would like to come in and, just have a little question and answer session. I've yet to see anybody avail themselves of the Warrant Committee's
You
chair's offer.
would think that would be important to somebody who
I-
took the time to get 100 signatures or more, or 200 or 300 signatures, and then to not come in seems a little silly.
I would. I'm not in the position to really try to cold call people and try to research their numbers or stop at their house. I don't think that's really wholly appropriate at all in any way. But I like at the last meeting I asked, and I've been asking around, and so just to answer your question,
Yeah.
not at this time. Not at this time. Does anybody have?
I
Lori?
have a comment. I just have a comment, and Nick, you can validate this, but I think from the information that you shared with me, to have a $33,000 appropriation for legal fees in the last 27 years, our expenses were more than $33,000 on that line item. So it does not seem to be a prudent suggestion by 100 citizens to automatically cause the town to go into a deficit. Unless I'm miscalculating my count of the years.
No, that math sounds right.
Anybody have any other questions or anything for Mr. Milano as it pertains to the law line item?
I have a question about the recommendation. Isn't the recommendation always, like, the warrant committee makes the recommendation? And so how will that be, will town meeting think the warrant committee made this recommendation?
This was discussed, I think, at the select board briefly.
Yeah, it was an issue, and we discussed it internally with the moderator and town council. I think we ultimately, on town council's advice, we took the petition exactly as presented. We did include a space for the warrant committee's recommendation in the warrant itself. So in terms of what the warrant says, it does copy that there's a recommended line. But the warrant then goes on to have a second line where it says the warrant committee has not yet made a recommendation. And I think that actually procedurally it is beneficial here is where there'll be a revised, updated green sheet recommendation from the warrant committee for clarity at town meeting itself. And we'll obviously put that online once the warrant committee is ready on it. And I think that will help clearly indicate what the warrant committee's recommendation is, notwithstanding the way the petition appears.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Anybody online? Last call. Any questions about, I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Milano, for all that. Do you think we could, if you could, to the best you can, discuss Article 15?
And that's the one related to the planning board, I
Yes.
think?
Yes.
Yeah, I think this one, it reads pretty clearly as what the intent is. I think the correct way to read this is almost as a resolution expressing the sense of the town meeting. As a separate elected body, I don't think that there's anything that the town meeting can force another elected body to do. So that's the way I've interpreted it. Obviously, as we've mentioned a couple times, town council will be with you on Wednesday. So if there's more specific questions around that, we'll certainly discuss that with him. But that's the way I've read it and interpreted it myself.
So I might have missed that, Nick. Was that like the select board instruct the planning board?
This is asking for the town meeting to instruct the planning board.
Town meeting. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? I know Mr. Milano's probably not the best versed on this. Obviously, to discuss this with Mr. Milano more, but anybody have any questions for him now? Again, pretty straightforward. Okay, nothing? All good? Okay, Nick, I know that you and I we just chatted briefly not too long ago, but what can you offer us, if anything, just regarding the lighting bylaw? I know this was a select board zoning article. It was kind of worked on by a member on the select board. It's been going around, I guess, for a couple of years now, but is there anything you can maybe enlighten us with just in regards to that article that we're looking at?
Sure. Yeah, so this was an article that Select Board Member Aaron Bradley has been interested in seeing get to town meeting. There are actually two. They are general bylaws, so not zoning bylaws. There had been some discussion initially that regulating lighting would need to be a zoning bylaw, but based on how some other cities and towns have approached it, or at least one anyway, it can be outside of the zoning code. So the select board has not had any kind of in-depth conversation recently on these two articles. They were placed on the warrant by the board. So I think she would be the best person to speak to about them. They were reviewed by town council for proper legal form to address to help address some issues raised, and when articles of a similar nature were approved in the community, as the municipal law unit of the Attorney General's office has to review and approve any local bylaws. So when they do so, they sometimes identify potential issues. So that is one item that council had reviewed and to assist Aaron in drafting those articles. But other than that, the board hasn't really had a deep conversation about them. Expect to do so between now and town meeting, but that hasn't happened quite yet. So I don't have a ton more to put in other than the intention, I think, is pretty clear from them in terms of looking to regulate outdoor lighting. And the other one is looking to provide a pathway for potentially problematic properties to be addressed through the select board.
Thank you, Nick. Anyone have a comment or question you may be able to answer? Okay.
Yeah, Nick, you just said the intention is clear, you think, and there's two. There's one that is protection against light trespass. I think I understand that. If my light is shining in my next door neighbor's bedroom, keeping them awake, this bylaw addresses that. I think that is clear. But then there's the dark sky protection. And that is not, the intention is not clear to me. I don't know what problem it's trying to solve. Can you help with that?
I think I would defer to Erin on that if she's coming in to speak about it. I think the intention is to place a little more control on outdoor lighting more generally. But again, it's not something that the select board has had a detailed conversation on, so that for me to be able to report back on.
Nick, can I ask you a question? And you mean, I don't know if you'll be able to answer it because it's a little strange. In your position as town administrator, or in your assisting the select board or any other kind of board up here at town hall, are lighting complaints going through the roof?
That's not that has come across my desk. There occasionally will be complaints, but we do have a code enforcement officer.
Sure.
In the building department, and I can follow up with them. We reached out to the building commissioner when this was being crafted at one point, but we can regroup and I can report back on that.
No, I'd appreciate it. And I just asked that just because is this bylaw, is there a specific residential or commercial property this is looking to address?
Yes.
Or is this just that's why I asked the question. I just know if it was a bigger problem in the town right now, but.
Yeah, I wouldn't say people are banging down my door on it, but I'll double check with the code enforcement officer and get some data if there is any on you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, Macy. If Macy can follow up.
Where did this bylaw, what was the result? How did this come about? You just mentioned, I'm sorry to interrupt, you just mentioned that the whole town's not knocking on your door. So if it doesn't sound like it's a prevailing and compelling public issue, so how did this come about that the town is seeking dark sky protection and protection against light trespass? How did this come about, if you know?
And not necessarily on the specifics, just procedurally, our office will help with, anybody who's looking to craft a bylaw, and I think that's what we did here. We helped provide some resources, looked at how other communities have done it, and shared that. So we facilitated from that perspective. In terms of what is precipitating it for Erin, I would think it's something that's worth the committee speaking with her directly on, and I don't want to misrepresent or not properly kind of share her perspective on.
That's right. Okay, we have Judy and Allison. A couple of more questions, if you can.
Okay, this is for Nick. You mentioned that part of this article will be that the select board could address lighting issues and make a determination. Is that what you were saying? If in the end this article doesn't address specific issues and resolve them, then the select board can determine if somebody's lighting is not correct.
Yes, the second of the two articles would provide for like a hearing process by which if a complaint was filed, that person would be invited into a meeting to discuss the issue, and the select board would find that there's a light trespass issue that exists, and there would be, potential penalties as a result.
If I may,
Sure.
follow that through. I think lighting is a zoning issue in a way, or a building department issue. People that are immersed in these type of issues, and no disrespect to our select board at all, but where would that body, town government body, have the knowledge to address a lighting issue as thoroughly as, say, a planning board or our building departments? Any thought?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were just making a comment.
No, I always have to have a question until it's discussion time. I learned.
No, I mean, I think the intention was to keep it to, an elected body rather than staff, but beyond that, I can't really speak to the specific process outlined other than what the article reads currently.
Okay, thank you.
May I say something?
Actually, Allison is
Okay,
next.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Hi, yeah, so that would that then, for people who have like Christmas lights, like, are we starting to now, would this bylaw cover, things that are done in the community, like that gentleman does on what street is that? And he does this great like Christmas, like little light show. Would that, and he's been doing it for like 20 years, which is amazing. And everyone, people enjoy it. Would that now put all of these kind of things under question? Nick?
I think that's a better question for town council than it is for myself in terms of those kinds of specifics. And, I think the easy answer is they would be fine as long as it complies with the requirements under dark sky. But I think there may be, I don't believe the intention is to affect like seasonal decorations, but I could be
Not
wrong.
exempted from here.
I know that there was a member on the team that asked, now, I'm sure you have some sort of detail, but this is kind of geared around the Turner's Pond resident. I mean, and Erin should come and speak for herself, but this is, I mean, if we want the back history of it, could go into some of the meetings and see that this has to do with the lighting around the Turner's Pond resident. I think we need to be kind of, put that out there for people to understand if they want to look for information regarding it.
Looks like they're targeting someone with this.
I didn't see anything in the dark skies with holiday lights or Christmas lights or anything like that. But as an aside, so they would be prohibited, I would think. But the whole intent of dark skies, you're not gonna be able to answer it probably anyways, is that you can see the stars and you can see everything else. But does it work if you're like next to Boston and Quincy? I don't think it works anyways.
Airplanes. And there's airplanes going over
Yeah,
24/7.
Dog.
so it wouldn't matter.
We didn't see
Yeah.
the Northern Lights when they were here.
Right,
Remember
right.
the
Oh, I saw them
Did you see them in Milton?
in my backyard.
I saw some of it, but not as
Yeah.
clearly as other locations because we are so close to the city and the airport and all those factors. So those, I mean,
Yeah.
so unless you ban all that too.
Right, so I would think we just, maybe there should be an expert, because that would want to illuminate us on this.
Illuminate,
Nice.
enlighten us.
Very-
Yeah.
I have another question for you.
Macy.
Nick, is there another exception for floodlights for security purposes? For lights that you can train to go on whenever there's movement and then have it go off in 5 minutes? Because I don't see that in this proposed bylaw. So I'm just thinking of motion detectors, anyone who has a Google camera floodlight, you can obviously set it to go on and stay on to a certain amount of time and the type of movement. But it sounds to me, or at least what I'm looking at, this particular bylaw will eliminate a property owner's right to protect their property.
I don't believe there is a carve out for those, correct?
So, like I said before, Nick, our town administrator doesn't have, this was a
Poor Nick.
creation of the school, the select board, rightfully so, and there just hasn't been a lot of discussion on it. I attempted myself to find discussion beyond the meeting.
Okay.
This was approved. So I know that town council who did review this will have a lot to add to our discussion on Wednesday about it. But are there any, could I say softballs for Nick? Maybe you could pitch at him?
Leave him alone.
Not necessarily to Nick, but responding to something Member Steele said just a minute ago.
Absolutely, Jim.
About the select board making decisions, and are they the best ones to make decisions? Karen sent around an email to the whole committee with some information that I have related to this. Short version is, our law is very similar to a law from New Marlborough, Massachusetts. And one of the attachments I had, it's called like MLU decision, was the Attorney General ruling on the New Marlborough law and saying, yes, it's fine. But the Attorney General did say about that law that has a lot of similarities to this one. They said, you don't have any standards or criteria that will guide the select board to making this determination. So the Attorney General did not prevent them from putting this into law, but they did say it's really not good that you don't have standards or criteria for how you decide these things. So I share Member Steele's concern about the select board making decisions.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. Judy?
Yeah, in sort of unison here to this, if I had an issue with the water main here, I would go to the DPW and feel as though I'm going to get the best outcome. from the town on a specific issue. And I think something like this lighting, is my lighting justified by a very good part of our town, the select board, but where is the, as to what Jay was saying, guidelines, things to follow? It would seem to me that the planning board, who has to know all of these regulations when they're approving things, lighting, setbacks, a million things that go into what does the zoning really mean. It should have some, people that are immersed in that particular field to weigh in. So I'm not sure if it stays with the select board, that they aren't obligated in some way to confer with even conservation, although, forget that, they work for select board, but some channel of expertise to be weighed in. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Any other questions for Mr. Milano? Lori?
Nick, I don't know if you have any context around this, but we've talked about it potentially having been through the planning board previously. Is there, like, where do lighting bylaws typically go? General bylaws or zoning? Do you have any knowledge of that?
I believe council had looked at that as, when it first came up a couple of years ago. And I think I don't know if there's a clear trend. I know initially it was, one pathway was zoning, but we've, as alluded, Jay referenced the New Marlboro decision, that was a general bylaw. I don't know if that was the first that came across or if there are other examples. I believe it's been treated differently, kind of place to place.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody have any more questions for Mr. Milano as it pertains to this specific lighting bylaw, general bylaw, or I guess anything else that we've discussed this evening? Okay, Mr. Milano, it looks like no more questions or comments for you. So I think, being said, I think if you'd like to leave the meeting, you may. I really appreciate you coming and shining some light on a couple of these issues that we're trying to tackle tonight. And please come back on Wednesday if you want.
Thank you for the
We'll turn 'em
invitation.
off.
As always. And thanks everybody for the work on the comments and the warrant and helping us get that out the door. Much appreciated. It should be in mailboxes. It's up on the website. So thank you all for your help on closing the loop on the warrant itself. And obviously, if any other questions come up, feel free to reach out, give me a call, or shoot me an email.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. Have a nice
Thanks so
evening.
much.
You too.
Okay. You know what? No, usually now after a discussion or a speaker, usually we kind of just segue into discussion. But I think it's appropriate. I like how we ended with the lighting bylaw, and our member Jay Fundling, our third-year member, did some work on this for us to kind of fill the gap. Jay, thank you. Jay distributed via email through Karen some things that he put together. And Jay asked for the opportunity to present and show his work, so obviously I said yes. And Jay, please,
Okay.
the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, you all should have gotten an email from Karen right before the meeting started with copies of the lighting bylaw, in case you need those, the presentation I'm about to do, and two things related to the New Marlboro law. I'm going to mispronounce that. One is their annual report, which you can scroll through it and find the law and find the discussion at town meeting. And then also the Attorney General's comments on that, which I've already alluded to. So let me share my screen. Let's see, I have to click share, that's key. If I say slideshow, does that work? Okay, great. So there are two bylaws in front of us. One is the protection against light trespass. If my light is shining in your house and it bugs you, that's what that one's about. And I have a few issues with that, including the issue that Member Steele and I talked about just a minute ago. But I have a lot fewer issues in that one than with the dark sky protection law. So I'm going to focus on that. So I'll go through this. I'm going to be sort of assuming people have read it or people can go back and read it. I will say two things we should know to start the discussion. A couple things from this dark skies bylaw. There's the definition of the term fully shielded. A fully shielded outdoor light only shines down. It does not shine sideways. It does not shine up. So if you look at the picture on the left, that's a fully shielded light. On the right, that looks like the light I have in front of my house. That looks like I walk down my street. All my neighbors have lights that look like that. Those are lights that are not fully shielded. The bylaw does require newly installed lights to be fully shielded. Current lights is going to be a subject of discussion in a slide or two. And one other thing that comes up is the light temperature. This talks about the light color, the light temperature. It says outdoor lights must be less than 2700 K. So that's the left-hand side of that chart. It's the orangish light, not the bluish light. So those are a couple of big subjects in this bylaw. All right. And I'm going to go through my major concerns. I do want to say that I have enough concerns with this one. I don't feel it can be implemented as a bylaw as written. I think it needs some work. So let me go through my concerns from largest to smallest. First one, a house porch light. You have one like I showed, like a lot of us have. Does it need to be swapped out for a fully shielded light? Well, I'll start by in top left and say no, because the bylaw specifically says that new lights need to be fully shielded. Well, new lights implies that current lights don't need it. But if you read the part of the bylaw that says intention, it says it's intended that current lights not otherwise affected by this bylaw must be made compliant within 2 years. Not entirely sure what that means. And it also says pre-existing lights need to be brought into compliance within 2 years. But the first paragraph says that pre-existing lights don't need to comply if they get an outdoor lighting permit.
Seriously?
So I'm not sure how to parse all of these. Are you?
I'm like, just, are you kidding me?
Okay. So,
Thanks for doing this, Jay.
on to the next slide. The phrase require that pre-existing luminaries not otherwise affected by this bylaw may be compliant with this bylaw within 2 years.
Yeah.
I thought about that. I thought, well, compliant with the bylaw, it says new ones need to be fully shielded. So maybe it doesn't mean my porch light. But then what does not otherwise affected by this bylaw mean? What does this phrase mean at all if it doesn't mean I need to swap out my porch light? I'm not sure. And I will say, as I said, this bylaw is based on the bylaw from New Marlborough. I'm getting better at pronouncing that. But we made a few changes. The New Marlborough law said we encourage people to be compliant within a few years. This one says we require people to be compliant within a few years. So that's different. Porch light. Do I need to change my porch light color to be the warm light? Not the end of the world, but do I need to do it or not? If I get an outdoor lighting permit, can I keep my current light bulb? I've got some quick math at the bottom. I walk down my block. A lot of houses have 2 to 5 non-conforming lights. If we do need to replace them, the cheapest one I found at Home Depot was $40 each. $80 to $200 per household. If it's $100 per house, 10,000 households, that's $1 million that the town is spending. Not out of the town's budget, but out of the people's budget. I'm not saying this was intended. I'm just trying to figure out where it might lead us. Next slide. Town-owned streetlights. It says that outdoor lighting on public properties must be modified to comply within 2 years. Okay, we own 3,300 streetlights. The town of Milton owns them. I asked DPW what color they are, and it was confirmed that the color is 4,000 K. So, sort of a middle of the road blue. That means they don't fit the requirement, they need to be 2800. We bought these streetlights in 2017, $750,000 was the line item in the warrant, but that was offset by a grant from Eversource, and we also got lower bills because we were replacing Eversource employees sitting here, conflict of interest, blah, blah, blah. And also we were getting lower bills because they're more efficient streetlights. Are we going to exchange? Are we going to swap all these? All 3,300 that are less than 10 years old to get a new color. It won't be lower bills because they're not more efficient. We won't have a grant. Usually we replace about $100 per year, 100 lights per year. If we do this, we'll be replacing 30 lights per week. I should stop and take a breath. Comments, questions so far?
You probably didn't include any lights that have motion detectors, right? Because you would know. A lot of people do.
Yeah, that's what.
You're talking about I didn't understand the question.
Residential lights,
Okay.
motion detectors. A lot of people, you know how you said it was gonna be $40 per house? A lot of people have motion detectors, so you wouldn't see it unless you walk.
Oh, so you're saying it's more expensive?
It would be more expensive.
Yeah. I,
Oh, wait.
Do you do a Google?
40
cam?
bucks is not gonna be.
No.
New Marlboro is out in the western part of the state. It's-
By New York.
Pittsfield is a big town compared to New Marlboro, as is Great Barrington. This might make sense out there, where, you've got miles of nothing in little towns, so you want to be able to see the stars. First of all, you can see a lot more stars
You can
just
see
out
the
there
stars.
today than you do out here in the greater Boston area.
do you have our dark sky protection bylaw in front of you? Can you read the first sentence?
To protect the rural character of the town. I highlighted
Yeah,
that
that's good.
because I was
Yes.
wondering what town she was
They
talking about.
changed it. I have the natural beauty. Which one are you at?
Did they change?
I have.
Oh, well,
so-
that's point 2, to protect the natural beauty of a dark
Was there a
sky.
number 1?
Oh, rural
Yes.
character, you're right, sorry,
Low-eye.
Lori. I missed
Yes.
that.
And the dark sky
The new Marlboro law.
is a rural town with a
Just for people
rural.
listening at home, I don't know
New
if they.
Marlboro is a rural town, that's absolutely true. Jay, I really appreciate what you've done to put this together, but I think this is the silliest thing I've ever read, ever.
I'm not done.
Not yours, not yours.
No, I just mean I'm not done.
Well, I appreciate, I think Aman, do you have a comment or a question for Jay as what was presented thus far?
I was going to ask if no one has asked for how we compare to the other towns when it comes to the bylaws or around the lighting. And
I will tell you, I took a peek at a website that linked to 50 different Massachusetts bylaws about dark skies, and I thought, oh, I can look at these quickly. The 50 different bylaws were all 50 different bylaws, so I didn't look at them closely. There are dark skies laws. There are dark skies laws in the metro Boston area. None of them had this wording. This wording is based on New Marlboro. So I don't know how to answer your question. I'll say there are dark skies laws in the metro Boston area.
I'm just learning about it, so that's why I'm just trying to understand.
Macy.
I just, out of curiosity, is there one in Boston, the city of Boston?
I don't know.
City of Cambridge, Somerville?
Cambridge and Somerville, I believe so, but don't, yeah, I believe so.
I'm just wondering whether there are other towns that are similarly situated like the town
I
of
was
Milton.
just looking at Quincy.
At least Cambridge and
Quincy, how
Somerville.
did I
Yeah,
forget
Quincy.
Quincy?
Right. How would this even be enforced? I mean, this seems just so silly. Everybody.
The whole question of enforcement is a whole other ball of wax, and when I said I don't have many issues with the other bylaw, the enforcement issues I do have with the other bylaw.
We always have enforcement issues. But, if I could, Jay, you want to just kind of move along?
yeah.
Maybe we can.
Next, this is one. The bylaws in 4 different places refer to an outdoor lighting permit. And I will say, the new Marlboro bylaw just talked about a special permit. And the Attorney General said, no, don't say special permit, that's a specific meaning. So that's one change we made to ours. Instead of saying special permit, we say outdoor lighting permit. But we never say what it is. And the 4 times it's referred to are, to my mind, 4 sort of different situations. But we never do say, you need an outdoor lighting permit if you're going to build a building. We never say that. We never say, there's one place that says, if you're going to do any modification that requires an outdoor lighting permit, you have this restriction. I don't know when you require an outdoor lighting permit.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I think under the definitions, it does provide what an outdoor lighting means. So it means a temporary or permanent lighting that is installed, located, or used in such a manner as to cause light rays to shine outdoors, which I think is the purpose of outdoor lighting anyway, right? Is
Does not
to
forbid outdoor lighting.
cause light rays to shine
This
outdoors.
bylaw does not forbid outdoor lighting.
Well, no, I'm just saying that, like, for a permit, right? So I guess if you're seeking a permit, you're seeking a permit for outdoor lighting, which is described, defined on page 2 as temporary permanent lighting that is installed, located, or used in such a manner as to cause light rays without giving a measurement of the lux of the light to shine outdoors.
I guess I would say,
Right.
since the P is capitalized, I expected a definition of outdoor lighting permit, or even if not a definition, somewhere in here tell me who needs an outdoor lighting permit? When do you need it? What does it get?
Exactly.
How much does it cost?
Well,
How much does the permit cost?
Oh,
It does define what an applicant is. That would be,
it does.
yes, it does. It does. So, but anyway, I'm just wondering whether we can infer based on permit and outdoor lighting. That's what
and the
it is.
permit granting authority is
Of
the
course.
select board.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That was the only part of the information that we know about the permit.
Just we don't have the definition of permit.
Oh my gosh, the select board doesn't have enough to do, I guess.
Yeah.
And also what the cost
Yeah,
would be.
continue, Jay.
Okay.
Sorry, Jay.
Sorry, Jay.
Oh, no, it's
It's
okay.
really easy.
The
to
next
say.
one.
This is a hot topic.
Yeah, keep going, Jay.
The next one is brief. Any person violating a provision of this bylaw shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. I don't know if a town bylaw can create a misdemeanor. I don't know. I tried to look it up. I did not succeed. I do know that this line was in the New Marlborough law, but if you look at the town report that I sent you, during town meeting, they scratched this out. So,
Misdemeanors are also punishable by house time or county time. That's so I looked that up today.
so this would be easy enough to amend, but we may not want to be, I don't know if bylaws can create misdemeanors. Those are my biggest ones. Couple other ones. And this one was already previewed by one of our members at home. Oh, Judy has her hand up.
Judy,
Just quickly, if I could, I know
No
we want to see the whole presentation. But wouldn't a misdemeanor, and I asked this to all the lawyers on our committee, involve now the police department?
Yes.
I mean, and so now the police have to come down, look at my lighting, perhaps, and who's gonna tell them that it's a misdemeanor? Do you know what I'm trying to say? Lawyers, help me out here. In other words, there has to be a law on the books for the police to determine that you're in violation of the law. You know, you're driving on the wrong side of the road or something, and the police can easily understand that that is a prohibited thing, and issue you a citation, which may or may not lead to a misdemeanor. But a misdemeanor is a court thing. Am I correct?
it's a
You would have to
Milton
go to
misdemeanor.
court
Milton is.
So a
to
misdemeanor.
defend yourself?
No, a misdemeanor is a law that's promulgated by the general court, signed into law actually, but by the governor, that is punishable up to 2.5 years in the House of Correction. So a misdemeanor, like a felony, which is a sentence 5 years to state's prison or more, that's a liberty interest.
It is.
It's a liberty,
How
like,
could that be
and it-
for outdoor lighting, I'm
so
for that.
Aren't you entitled to a jury trial on a misdemeanor too, in district court?
you are.
So in Quincy District Court, you can elect a jury trial if you're charged with a violation
can't-
of
We
the
can't
dark
approve
sky
that
protection bylaws.
law.
Oh, my God.
And how can our police department
I could be
know
arrested
if your
for
lights
anything.
are a
Porch lights,
misdemeanor?
door lights, my Google Cam lights.
Let's
Oh,
not
okay,
defund
we're
the
gonna
legal budget.
move on from the
All right.
misdemeanor.
Sorry, this is so much
Oh,
fun.
it's fascinating.
The next one has already been brought up on this call. There is not an exception for holiday lights. And if you remember the definition of fully shielded, it only shines down.
Yeah.
There might be some holiday lights that are fully shielded, but I've never seen them.
No. And what about the East Milton Square, that park area where they're putting lights? So no more lights.
No more lights.
So, and I've got a list of some towns at the bottom. I did look at some. Yeah, not all of them exempt holiday lights, but,
Oh,
you know,
I-
Cambridge has a dark sky law, that Arlington does, Newton does, Wellesley does. They all exempt holiday lights
Did you say
explicitly.
Wellesley?
I like how you did that.
Harwich?
Thank you, I had fun with
I
that.
appreciate it.
I bet you
Yeah.
did.
Okay. Next, state-owned lights. We've got the DCR roads, like Blue Hill Parkway, and we've got I-93. Are these required to comply?
Well, I would think so.
No,
They
I don't know
not
the
guilty?
requirement.
no, they're, because those are highways, they're not considered
Good
town.
question,
Okay.
but a good question to ask.
That's good, but
So, and then I started thinking.
Actually, okay.
Oh, yeah, go on.
No, please, you go. I think you might touch on this.
I don't know if I will. But we have not had someone discuss this with us, but I'm imagining what the response might be. And one response that I might expect to hear is, we won't enforce that part.
I bet we will.
Every porch light in town needs to be replaced within 2 years. Well, we're not going to enforce that. Holiday lights are illegal. We didn't mean that. We're not going to enforce that. We have to replace every street light in town at the town's expense. No, we didn't mean that.
what about homes on a national register of historical places? So do you have to change those lights within 2 years?
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's why I started with our current lights. Do current lights need to be updated or not? I cannot figure it out. Maybe they'll say no, but what else? Oh, and also, we talked about this. You know, I expect this to be discussed with this issue. And the subject also came up when we were looking at the zoning bylaws, which is, well, town council reviewed this. We think the attorney general will say it's okay. If town council says something's okay, to me that says it's not illegal. We can create the law. But that's not the goal, that's the bare minimum. For example, it is not illegal for us to write a bylaw that says the town has to replace all 3,300 streetlights in 2 years. I'm sure town council would say, yep, that's a law, you can make it. Doesn't mean we should. So I'm just anticipating that might be a response. And now after this, I have different concerns. I will at the very least flip through these so that the people at home can screenshot them. I don't know, we seem to be having fun with this. Maybe I should talk. Okay, protect the role of part of the town. Definitions, you know, I like my definitions. Public lighting. Why'd we choose this light color? Again, I sent you all this presentation. You can look at it. The people at home can pause their video. Enforcement is a question. There's one part we talk about offenses, one part we talk about violations. I'm not sure if they're the same. And then, is it a civil penalty or a criminal penalty? Maybe some of the people on this side of the table can dig into this.
Well, if you start using words like misdemeanor, no.
Yeah, and
Do you
then,
agree, Tom?
Oh, and then this gets to what Member Steele said earlier. We should have written down in the bylaw, if it's going to be enforced by a ticket, let's say, which is what 21D means. You're supposed to say who the enforcing person is, the person writing a ticket. Right now, we only reference 21D in one part of our bylaws, and we say who the enforcing person is. Sorry, this is not as fun as talking about holiday lights. But it's something that I think should take a look. And then the last few slides, I just pointed out where our wording is different than the new Marlboro wording. And I can,
Yeah, Jay.
for
please.
example,
Yeah.
at the very beginning, it gets into are things grandfathered or not. At the very beginning, we say, if you have a lawfully pre-existing outdoor lighting, you're in compliance if you get a permit within 2 years. I don't really know what that means, and New Marlboro did not have wording like that. Then what else? It gets into the, well, first of all, we say outdoor lighting permit, they say special permit, okay. But then this is also the place where we say things need to be brought into conformity within a 2-year anniversary of the law. New Marlboro didn't say that. I have a third one. Oh, still on the same theme. We say, New Marlboro said we want to encourage, but not, Zoom is in my way, encourage but not require that if you have a pre-existing light, you have to become compliant. And we say, we encourage complying immediately and then require. So.
Thanks for Jay
Jay,
seconding
Thank you,
that.
Jay.
If you people encourage me, I'm gonna do more of this. Don't you learn?
Yeah.
This needed it.
Yeah, it did it. And this is one of the chances where I appreciate Jay and all the work he put in to really fill in a lot of the holes for us as a committee. So Jay, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I know we do.
Yeah, nice work.
Oh, Judy.
This question goes to Jay. Does anyone know where New Marlboro is?
Yeah.
Yes, Peter.
Lori knows.
Yeah, it's out by, between Great Barrington and Pittsfield out in western Massachusetts, very rural area, Judy.
Very rural.
Yes.
So, I guess that question goes to, we, this town, just do not any longer fit into rural.
Judy, you saying we're not the country?
Well, yeah, I kind of am. And to go to real dark skies, that means if you're in total compliance with dark skies, and I'm laughing because I actually drove by my own house in a place where total dark skies were enforced. You were in the dark the minute you hit the town line. No street lights, no outdoor lighting, highly regulated. And I actually drove by the street that goes to my street until I got half a mile down the road and I said, oh, something's lit up. And I realized it was the guardhouse to a very big golf community. And it was so unlit that I had to stop and think. I had to bang a Yui on a road that there was no other car. And I had to count trees, Palo Verde trees, to find, I'm almost there, 2 more lots and I'll be at my street. That's how dark it is. We are so, and then I would come back here and feel like I was at a stadium, just coming in our town. We have streetlights, we have, you know, people that are worried for security reasons will keep an outdoor light on during the evening, a porch light or, you know, a light attached to their house. And there's just no way to enforce this. We are not dark skies. New Marlboro perhaps fits the bill for this in a rural area where there may be few streetlights outside of the little town center. Anyway, thank you for that. And this whole, and to Allison's point, I think we would all have to be hibernating if we all didn't know, and we do know, that this all happened because of lighting that is at a public, town-owned place. And the lighting has bothered neighbors. So I'm wondering, you know, sort of in the back of my head, shouldn't this not be town-wide, but be more, you know, if you're at Hope's Pond, if you abut conservation land, more centered on that than entirely town-wide? I don't know, it's just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Appreciate that. The end, very much.
It'd be a good idea to talk about the other light-related bylaws, given that that looks so innocent compared to what we've been seeing here through Jay's presentation. I mean, shining a light in somebody's window is a little bit different than just shutting down all of the lights in the town. But I don't want to be preemptive here, Tom, if you wanted to have further discussions.
Oh, no, I just, as long as I think the committee wants to discuss, I mean, I think it seems like we've all had the chance to consume this a little bit and go through it. Brian, do you have a comment on it?
Sure. Well, I think both laws weren't well thought out. You know, there's too many questions about them.
So you're talking about the citizens petitions, or the lighting,
that
the two lighting?
I was just talking about the lighting laws.
The light
Well, let
trespass?
me get to that. Well, a couple things.
Oh, just stay on the lighting, I guess.
Let's stay on the lighting, just on the lighting.
Keep enlightening us.
Well, I'll say this for both, is that like, not having somebody who's an expert to come in and talk to you is like really not helpful. Like Nick talking about the citizen's position, and he's like, I didn't do it. You know, like, what's the meaning behind it is also frustrating. But the lighting, we have no experts to talk to about. I mean, maybe there is something legitimate, but we have nobody to, there's no way to make a decision on this.
I also wanna-
Except it doesn't seem like it was well thought out. There's a lot of questions. I don't think the select board is qualified to enforce these things. Like, none of them, I would suspect, are. It sounds like it'd be subjective, you know, which isn't right.
Well, yeah, because in its sole discretion and a condition determined by the select board
Right.
to constitute a public hazard. So not only they, enforcement, Brian, to your point, they also determine basically, they're judge, jury, I mean, they're everybody.
And execution.
And execution.
And it's vague. It's just, both of them are vague.
Yeah.
Christmas lights, you can't do Christmas lights anymore, holiday lights, Halloween lights, whatever. And I don't know, there's no experts. Like, I was on the other side of this issue with noise in another town, and people had to be certified by the town in order to judge if you were over noise level. You had to take a class, but there's nothing like that.
That was my other question. It's like, how do you measure like the illumination? So like the protection against light trespass. Usually for trespassing, there's an amount of footage that you have to, it becomes trespassing, unless it's your own private property. So if the light's just shining over, I mean, I don't know, what is, I mean, I'm moving on to the other one, on the light trespass, and how do you measure the lux level, which is the illumination of a light that constitutes trespassing? It doesn't say any of that. It just says illuminate, light trespass. I mean, like I said, it's the Google Cam, there's, you know, floodlights, there's all sorts of lights. We all share, you know, lighting.
I think it's like art, you know it when you see it, you know, it's, there was a number of years ago, and it's still there, a private skating rink built on Canton Avenue on the way
Oh,
to
yeah.
Blue Hill.
Yeah.
So that was a big
Oh,
issue
yes.
for the town for a long time, but
Yes.
there wasn't anything they could do about it because,
Yeah.
you know, it's private property and they had a lot of it. I'm assuming that this would address that and maybe another issue for the town where there've been a number of complaints. I mean, I think that really the second law, the late trespass law, is set up to police the blatant issues of you know, somebody not being all that neighborly and setting up either floodlights or overlighting the property, et cetera, where you could address it. That seems to me to make sense. That's the only thing that seems to me to make sense.
Lori?
I wonder also if there will be an issue with, like, the commercial properties, and, you know, there's been the signage and some issues with signs and the illuminated signs, and if the commercial property, the fruit center is in a residential area, like, I wonder what their lighting is like, and has this even been, like, did anybody look at what this would do to that business? And is that gonna create other issues for them? And maybe it's not an issue, but I mean, any other,
Well, they have lights on at night for security. All businesses do.
All do.
well, maybe they can't anymore.
Well,
Right.
same as places of worship in the town.
Yes.
Yeah,
They light their parking lots.
Oh, yes.
And they say, oh, well, it's for safety, but
Right.
they don't even pay taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, and those are all in residential areas.
that's right, you're absolutely right.
Especially on Blue Hill Parkway.
Yeah.
There's a lot of churches, yeah.
Exactly, so,
Several churches though.
and I don't think really, you know, the law is gonna say, well, we're gonna carve you out, and like, I mean, it totally defeats the purpose of the whole thing.
Right.
Because those are the biggest lights,
Right, yes.
you know, my 40-watt front light bulb.
I'm,
100-watt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't even afford those.
I'm just
Gonna
looking
get
at
LED
Cambridge,
lights.
and they had an outdoor lighting ordinance task force that met for 3 years before they came up with their, and then before it went to the city council,
Who's this?
Cambridge.
So they did a study.
They,
Yeah.
so, I mean, we have 90 committees. You'd think we would have a committee for this that would
Well, yeah.
actually look into it instead of,
Because this is a
Taking-
general bylaw, it removes itself from a planning board, correct, Jay? Or another article brought forth, but there's no public hearings necessary.
well, and this included, you know, inspectional services, license commission, electric department, community development. They engaged a lighting consultant to provide technical expertise and guidance. This is, I mean, I think it's a great idea, but I think you gotta do it properly, not take Newton Marlboro, a rural town, abutting New York.
I'm gonna go back
Upstate New
to,
York.
Mr. Milano, whose office isn't being flooded with lots of light complaints at this point. You know, to run through what Cambridge did here for no good reason would seem like a tremendous waste of money for me.
Well, I would disagree.
It seems to me, if I may speak,
please, Nancy, yes.
after my question to Mr. Milano, that these two bylaws are targeted to very specific residential areas or residences in Milton. I mean, like he said, it's not that the whole town is knocking on his door and flooding the town with complaints.
I saw a great picture in the Boston Globe several years back where they did an aerial picture of Eastern Mass, or like, you know,
Yeah.
generally within 128. And when you look to the picture, in fact, the author pointed out Milton. And he said, you can clearly see where you cross into Ponset. And I'm telling you, it was dark. And he specifically, he or she, I don't know the author, but specifically pointed out Milton and how dark it is and how the contrast with even just Dorchester in the Lower Mills area. It's just surprising. It's kind of a cool picture. I've tried to go back and find it, and I can't, unfortunately. But
That's back when we were rural.
When Thatcher Farm still had
Jay,
cows.
I'll play devil's advocate a little bit for the light trespass, in favor of the light trespass law. My favorite part about this law is that if it gets passed, is that it would exist. And what I can imagine is two neighbors sort of politely disagreeing about, oh, your light is shining in my bedroom. And if one of the neighbors could point out, you know, there is a bylaw against this, that would hopefully settle things before it even gets into any enforcement. Neighbor, there's a bylaw. Can you turn off your light? Oh, it's against the bylaw? Okay, I will. I like that a lot. I do think, and I didn't spend any time talking about this, I do think there are nitpicky things that need to be, you know, what's a violation versus what's an offense. Is it really per day or is it per, and some of the 21D questions that I'm not a lawyer, but I'll write them down and send them to town council specifically about light trespass. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it needs to be cleaned up a little bit. I don't know. I think I see a reason for the light trespass one to exist. I don't
yeah,
know.
you know, I kind of look at this, and Jay, I appreciate, like, the thought of, like, this could really kind of help disputes. Well, you say, hey, there's something on the books about this. You know, maybe someone will say, oh, sorry, okay, I'll back off. I think that's a good, no, I think that's something good from it. My fear is like a weaponization. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I'm suffering from
gonna
light
be-
pollution.
Yeah, I just, you know, Jay, I think it's the same thing. I like the good citizen, and I like that you care enough about your neighbor to shut off the light that's blasting in their house. I mean, that's like the right thing to do. I'm also afraid that, you know, some people, unlike the people all in this committee, may be a little unreasonable and look to kind of utilize this. Like I said, I'm just speculating and just in terms of that, but I appreciate that comment, Jay, because you would hope that's how it would work. Julie.
Hey there. You know, Jay, listening to you, I feel like you're obviously a good neighbor, and that's what, you know, you would do. But I have a feeling that just by watching Facebook and everything else, nobody goes to anybody's house anymore. Nobody adults. Nobody says, hey, there's an issue, can we work it out? They call the police, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, we've given some sort of legal ability for people to go after a neighbor. Because what we should have is a good curtain law and not a, you know, lighting law and who can do what.
Dark shade law.
This is just gonna get, you know, it's gonna get weaponized, and I think we all know it.
totally.
And,
You'll see
and I think-
pictures on everything
It- it just-
Milton, Facebook.
Yeah, and that's all it is. It's gonna be people trying to see, now we can get the police involved, and now it's gonna be, and I just feel bad for whatever officer's gonna have to answer the call and go up there with some sort of light meter and say, well, this is the bylaw at, you know, midnight or whatever. So I just kinda think, and I appreciate the work that went into this, and I wish we still had the cows and everything at Thatcher Farms, but we don't. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks, guys.
We would like good fences make good neighbors. Do good lights make good neighbors?
Yeah,
I like my neighbor's floodlights because they shine onto my driveway. Helps me out.
that's nice.
Who really does that they would take a society with good values over good laws? That, you know, bad laws and survive bad laws. Our values is
Good,
crazy.
good people. Does anybody have anything else? We're gonna try to get someone in here on this one from the select board, hopefully next week.
I will throw out, I'm on vacation with my kid next week. I am not going to be in a meeting. I'm not going to call into a meeting. If someone comes in here from the select board speaking to this, is there someone who will take up the torch?
Jay, I don't know, you might want to call it.
Jay?
No!
You own this
Jay,
now, man.
Jay, I could not have you take time away from your kids when
Thank
you're
you.
away.
Right.
I would skip this meeting myself. I'll take the torch. I really appreciate you preparing this and getting in the weeds on this. So I will make it my point and maybe recruit a few others to give me a hand. This is very comprehensive, and it goes beyond just how much it's going to cost. It goes into the language, the verbiage, everything else. So you can count on me, Jay.
Thank you.
I have one question for Jay. Was the judge from The Simpsons or?
The Simpsons, yes.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Judy?
Judy?
Jay, I didn't check my email before meeting. Is your presentation available for us to review?
Yes, I believe Karen sent it out just a minute or two before the meeting started.
Okay, perfect. Have a good vacation.
Thank you.
Okay, look at the time. You know, I'd like to, I'm not pushing us to end at any time. I'd just like to engage in a brief discussion about the other two.
Okay.
Maybe start with the law appropriation. Because I'm saying this in anticipation of Wednesday or Thursday's meeting where potentially we could take a vote on these. I think we would be ready after we spoke to town council, and also be looking forward to a vote on maybe the planning board article. So don't forget that, but
On the lighting one, we're gonna wait until the select people,
I'd like to just confirm, and I would probably have that confirmed the next couple of days, just to see if they can make that. It would be the 18th, which is a Tuesday. Yep. So,
So you want to discuss petition one?
yeah, I'd just like to discuss the law one first, you know. If there's ideas, thoughts, or questions to kind of propose to the committee, just to kind of think about it.
I have a lot to say about it, actually. But, like, I don't see how you can defund a legal department because you don't like the position that the town has taken on a particular legal matter. That's what I get out of it. You don't like that the selectmen or the people in the town voted a certain way, so you're gonna defund the legal department so that they can't perform something and put a lot of things at risk, not just the MBTA Act or whatever, but you put a lot of other things at risk in the town if they get sued for certain things. It kind of doesn't make sense to me. It's very irresponsible, I think.
Totally.
And especially given what Nick said, that there is currently pending litigation, and we know what legal fees can add up to. And I think just by looking at the initial appropriation of 28300, that's not a lot when you think about it. That is Goodwin Proctor in 1 month possibly, or two. So I don't think that that amount is incredibly huge. And then I also feel that, there's a lot of talk right now about the school not, there's a lot of a deficit with the schools. So are you going to go to another account because something happened there? I just think that that should stay the way it is because of pending litigation, potential litigation arising, and you've already spent $80,000, but you're going to leave an appropriation of just 33 with a deficit. Then you're going to have firms that are not going to want to work with this town.
Well, and just think to that point, as Nick said, if they come forward for an appropriation, we're well within our right as a warrant committee to say no.
Yeah.
We're not paying that bill.
Right.
And then they can't pay it.
I know.
Peter.
Yeah, I think this just sets a bad precedent as well. So any 100 citizens can decide that they'd rather have a playground than special ed. I mean,
Well, this could go off the
anywhere.
rails.
It could go absolutely anywhere. I think we know why it's here, and I agree with Brian completely on this. I think this is just bad to do, and I would vote no. Should have come to a vote.
Yeah, I would vote no too.
I think on this matter, if the MBTA being the focus, I mean, a lot of people voted to say no on that.
That's right.
And does the town see it through? Do we play 7 innings of a 9-inning ball game?
No.
So I think that's just things I'm thinking of. Don't we pursue the matter? And I know other issues have come up. I'm not as closely affiliated with that, but just what I read and people are saying. So I don't know, something to think about. I'd like committee. I know I'm hearing vote, but we do have town council coming in. I'd like him to opine for us in the public on some of the validity and obviously some of the questions we may have. Jay.
I think I agree with everything I've heard here. It's not the way to run a town budget. Certainly, the other article, and I'm trying to stay on this topic, but the other article is like a symbolic messaging. Here's how town meeting feels. I'm wondering if this also is or could be a symbolic article. If the warrant committee's recommendation, and I alluded to this when I was talking to Mr. Milano, if the warrant committee's recommendation were not to transfer $255,000, if the warrant committee's recommendation were to transfer $1, and if that is, keep in mind, the warrant committee's recommendation is the article that goes in front of town meeting, and it can be amended, but that's what town meeting starts their debate on, our recommendation. So if we recommend transferring $1, give me a second. If we recommend transferring $1, that's the article in front of town meeting. If they don't make an amendment, that's what they vote on. And then, $1 obviously is symbolic. Then town meeting could say, we feel this way, we want to send this signal, or no, we don't feel this way, we don't want to send this signal. So that might be something we want to consider. That is something I would want to do. Others have.
No. Please, Peter.
I would think that there is a possibility, regardless of what we say, the town meeting will pass this petition.
I agree.
So I would basically want to send the message of no to this for the reasons we just discussed, period. I don't want it amended. I don't want anything to it. I just want to basically say, no, thank you.
I mean, $1 is symbolic.
Yeah,
Sorry to
$1
interrupt,
is-
but
If it's $1, it opens the door for exactly what we talked about before, Jay. You can put it in there and, hey, maybe I get $1. Maybe this time I get half of it. Maybe it's whatever. I just say no. We can do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the precedence this sets, Nick said he doesn't know if this has ever happened before.
Right.
The precedence it sets, you could do this for everything, all over the board. 100 people can sign anything, and you could be sitting here
We do this forever, yeah.
going over stuff. It's just bad precedent. I would say, I hope the warrant committee, unanimously just says no, just so they don't have this. So you're just opening up a Pandora's box, I think.
Anyone else?
How you feel?
Oh, I concur.
Lori?
I absolutely concur with everything Macy, Peter, Brian just said.
Light,
And I think I just said also too, that in 27 years, our expenses were more than $33,000.
Right?
So, hello,
So,
it's irresponsible.
Totally is. Especially pending litigation on
Yeah.
some serious cases going on in court.
right.
That's gonna, I mean, 33,000, and then you're already in a deficit with 80 spent. No one would represent the town after that. I wouldn't, as a law firm.
it would be dangerous.
It'd be so dangerous if you try to, retain a
The law
firm.
firm's in on the hook.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's not
bad.
good.
It's just not in good
I'll be
faith.
Sued by a law firm.
Yeah, then there you go.
And then their
Oh, yeah,
liability
right.
goes up and everyone pays.
The insurance, yeah.
Because nobody's gonna take that line down.
Yeah.
Any conversation on, this is something we really haven't spent, I think, a ton of time with, or I haven't heard a lot about, was the planning board, having the town meeting tell the planning board to,
Yeah, well, that's sort of in line with changing the budget. You know, you can't have 100 citizens tell the planning board what to do. That doesn't make any sense.
And aren't they elected?
Keep in mind, it's not 100 citizens, it's a town meting.
Well, it will be town meeting. It'll go
So
to the town
300
meeting.
citizens
Yeah.
that
So-
don't represent the town.
No, it's 300.
Well-
It's, and again, it could possibly wind up being passed by town meeting as well, the petition number 2. Petition number 1 setting it up, petition number 2 voting yes. But I think the outcome is going to be the same as it was the first time around, which is that it'll go to the town will vote. And I just don't see this, I think this is a 9-inning game, not a 7-inning game. And I think there's still a lot of people in town who would come up in favor of fighting this.
yeah, I mean, town meeting sent it, no, it went to the town, from town meeting said no, and now we're going back and they're saying do it again.
Yeah,
I think that the town was very clear on that vote, it was a no vote.
and I think the town is confident in
And-
the outcome of the second go-around will be just the same as the first.
I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but the town voted no on a plan. The town voted no on a plan that had a ton of units planned for Granite Street. East Milton came out and said no to that. Does that mean the town said no to any 25% plan? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, and I would like to point out that unlike the one that moves money, the other one has no teeth. It's just, what is the sense of the town meeting? So,
Well, I don't know, if the town meeting voted for it, wouldn't the planning board have to pay a little more attention to it than it does right now?
I think it would be encouraging them to pay attention to it, sure, but it wouldn't actually compel them to act.
I don't think it can compel them
can't.
to act.
No.
Okay,
It would
The only
just be
thing-
expressing their sentiment.
Yeah, the only thing, no, it's by the ballot box,
yeah, you're right.
either independently elected. Okay, does anybody have any other thoughts or comments? Just, we've covered a lot of interesting issues. Jay's presentation.
No, I mean, I think, I don't know, we seem, maybe we could vote on all 4 things, but we probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I think it would benefit everyone, the committee, our comment, the town, I think, just to hear from town council on these and just have them answer our questions. And also, board, remember, we still have our site plan issue that we're gonna cover on Wednesday. And those specific questions regarding do we comply with the statute concerning short-term rentals?
Yeah.
And some of those other questions that I submitted to town council, so it would be really a discussion on what we've discussed, lighting, the 2 citizens petitions, and finishing up that site plan and answering those questions. It seems like we were there, and I think these questions need to get answered to maybe get us to a vote. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to share or discuss? We're on track for Wednesday. Let's see what we can get done in a reasonable time on Wednesday. I don't want to call us back Thursday. Thursday could be a vote day. I will try to get a select board member in here by next week to address the lighting and potentially take a vote. So a few more meetings, and then we got our special town. So like to wrap that up. I've asked Brian to start working on the bylaws comments for us, and so that's really it. Ron?
Hey, Tom. I was wondering, is it possible to share Jay's presentation with our select board so they know the types of questions that this committee will ask, or at least some of the questions? Is that like open? Is that an open meeting violation? Like, I don't know how can we share that? With them?
The opposite, it's a public document.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Anyone can view it at this
Yeah,
point.
it's out there, Ron. It's not a. That'd be up to the chair of the select board, I think, just to put it on their agenda and just address it. I did see a meeting where they sent it to us. Nick had indicated there might be some more commentary on it from them, but there's nothing scheduled at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some great questions and things that were raised. I'm going to assume it's well-intentioned, like everything that comes before us, and they just haven't had a chance to address these issues. So if they had a chance to look at it beforehand, maybe they have good answers. Maybe they intentionally written it this way, or maybe they just didn't think about it, and it gives them time to ponder, I guess.
Are you talking about an email or doing a present song and dance?
I don't think they need a song and dance. I mean, they're adults. They can read an email. They can read a PowerPoint.
Yeah,
Ron, I did get applause tonight. I mean, I did very well.
They did great. But, you know, the select board sends us the articles to advise the town. So it's not like we're not going back upstairs to try to tell them, like, oh, you do this for us and make it better, or we want you to do this. They can set it down. In terms of the information sharing, I would hope and trust that they'd look into it. But, you know, we're fed the articles.
Yep.
We're not article drafters.
Usually before the warrant is printed.
Yeah.
I have my meeting tomorrow, which will be televised on Milton Cable Access with Bob Hiss, our moderator. And I will be discussing the articles as printed thus far. I'm not going to be talking about any of our discussions. And
Bring Jay's presentation.
yeah, I know that would be
Comments.
quite an eye opener. But so like that, I'm not going to be commenting to the public, and they're going to be getting everything at once. So there'll be a void there. I don't know why I mentioned this, but I just thought it was a good time to read it.
Is that common that you would do that? That happens all every
Coffee with Bob?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the chair. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't, all my years, I never thought it happened. I think Jay brought it up to me. Jay, yeah, you did. You brought it up, and then I watched our chair from last year do it, so don't watch. I'll do my best to represent you well. But again, like I'm not beating this, but anybody else have something to say before I entertain a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, Warrant Committee. Thank you, Milton.
I don't know what to do with the extra hour.
Yay, before 9.